It's massive, it's quiet, and it's built to kill surface fleets. This is the Oscar II class submarine, a Cold War monster still feared today. Twice the size of an American attack sub, the Oscar carries a payload that turns naval strategy on its head. Lurking beneath the surface, it can launch a salvo of P-800 Onyx missiles, Mach 2.5 sea-skimming killers with enough range to strike well beyond the horizon. One launch can overwhelm an entire carrier group. And if you get too close, it doesn't retreat. It retaliates with the Shkval, a torpedo that doesn't swim but sprints. Supercavitating through the water at over 150 knots, it's less of a weapon and more of a warning. This is not a scout. It's a missile barge with teeth. It's a fortress under the waves, and by the time that you detect it, you're already on fire. Hey there, welcome back to Sea Power. Welcome to the showcase of the Oscar II class submarine. This thing's a beast. It is an absolute monster of a submarine, and it can kill, well, entire formations with a couple of its missiles, because it carries the P-800 Onyx. That's a hefty punch for a submarine. Here's why. These things carry 72 of those missiles. 72 of the SSN-26 P-800 Onyx. Now, down to the south here, we have a fairly unsuspecting surface group, and we already have them as picked up on radar by virtue of our scout craft. This is a Tu-95 doing some reconnaissance for us and giving us targeting information as to where that formation is. Now it is time to start giving these guys the good news. So, you go and launch salvo 4, 4, 4, 4. And let's see if we actually have good radar data. Yep, we have good radar data. Radar is active, we have them on radar. We don't have these guys on radar yet, but whatever, we got a seeker of our own. So what's going to happen now? Well, we're going to come towards the surface. Not at the surface, but let's say something around periscope depth. And that's when these immense bays open. And here comes the damage. Now, yes, the model that you're looking at is that of the Tomahawk, at least from what I've been able to discern. The thing is, they're way faster than a Tomahawk. Because the Tomahawk flies at, I think, 400 knots transiting, and then pushes up to 500 knots for the kill phase. This thing doesn't speed up or slow down, it just goes in at 1933 knots at an altitude of only 23 feet. If you compare that to some of the other missiles, you're looking at, for example, the P-700. That tends to pop up, have one or two missiles in control of the other missiles, and they're going to be flying at high altitude in order to get towards their targets. These things don't do that. They just sea skim, well, briefly at this range, and they get to their targets at immense speeds. Like, I'm approaching this thing 58, 51.28, 50.7, 0.2, 0.49, 0.6. You're gonna have very little warning if you're a NATO task force and you're on the receiving end of a volley of these things. Is there anything you can do? I don't know if AWACS will detect these, because it's a small target. It is not an easy weapon to spot, and even if you do spot it, you're gonna have increasingly little time to actually do something about it, because you simply don't get a lot of response time if your missile is that fast. Yes, some of the other Soviet missiles are also quite quick, but this thing is in a league of its own. Now, they are radar guided, so that means they're going to look for something big, and that is indicated as you can see that multiple of these missiles are already targeting the biggest target that they have found, which of course is an aircraft carrier. Now, I don't mind that, because the aircraft carrier is the thing I wish to blow up. There's the carrier. I'm going to go onto the stationary cam. You can see the ships are indeed trying to respond. But there's a hit. There is the Missouri, which is trying to fight back with a burst of Sea Whiz. And even as they're trying, they're just getting through. These missiles don't really get intercepted that easily. Yes, some of them do get intercepted, even one by a 5-inch. That's really impressive. You can see that missiles... I just didn't see any missile target me. Which is interesting, because they do have missile-capable ships. This is not a great way to sail your ship. The enemy aircraft carrier here, the Forrestal, did have the capability of launching missiles, the RIM 7E. Yeah, it's not a great missile, 6 miles out. This thing is remarkably slow compared to what it was hit by. And it just kills carriers like that. But it doesn't just do that. Because the Volgorod that I have over here also has some other surprises. I'm going to go below the layer, I'm going to slow down to a head 1/3. I think it's almost speeding up and slowing down like an electric car. This took me, what, 20 seconds to decelerate? Acceleration is not quite that, but it is still really good. So I think that might be a little over-tweaked. The ship might be a bit too... or sorry, the boat, I guess. The boat might be a little bit too strong in that regard. If you are looking to fight not a surface group, but a subsurface threat, then you have a few options. You can go standoff with the UGST Physicist. This is a deep water homing torpedo, which has a range of 27.4 miles. So that is very much on par with what you can expect from a Mark 48 AdCap. It has both anti-surface and anti-submarine roles, so you can do both. Makes it very versatile. And at 40 knots, there are few, if any, NATO units that can actually escape. Now, that is... it's not even the most fun weapon. That, I would say, is the Shkval. Or Shkval. I'm not exactly sure how you should pronounce that. This thing, yes, you're reading that correctly. 150 knots maximum velocity. You are, however, trading range, because you're only getting 9.5 miles. So this is really a weapon that you only use at short range. Now, I have set up a test target over here. This is one of the older Daphne-class submarines, and it is right there in front of us. So I'm going to send a Shkval after it. Open up the tube, and there it comes. These things, whoop, 150 knots. Just note how quickly they get away from the submarine. You can question their usefulness, because it's going to get detected very easily. You can see that the enemy submarine's already dropping noisemakers. But they're not going to have a whole lot of time to respond. They're not going to have a whole lot of time to try and get away from this thing, because it's so incredibly quick. I have seen that once they get closer to their target, like on the final track, they do tend to slow down to 40 knots and start behaving like a normal torpedo. I'm not sure if that is something that the real-life weapon would also do, or if that's something that is just modeled for sea power. You can make the case, well, if something has gotten into the range of the Shkval, then you've already made a mistake somewhere. And yeah, I would agree. You don't want to have to rely upon these 9.5 nautical miles weapons. I'd say they are a last-ditch effort. Because against submarines, if you can detect them at range, you have a sort of layered defense. The layered defense starts at the Stallion, which is an anti-submarine rocket. So it's an air-launched, well, it's an airborne delivered torpedo. You launch it out to 37 miles. If that fails, you still have the UGST, the Physicist. And if that fails, you got the Shkval. And over here you can see the Shkval still transiting to target. It's almost there. This would take a Mark 48 about 3 times as long. Well, 2 times, depending on what type of missile, sorry, torpedo you're looking at. Because some of them can actually get up to 65 knots. But not in transit. Whereas the Mark 48 AdCap tends to, let's say, cruise at 50. So travel at 50. They go at attack speed, I think, 65. This thing does it in reverse. So cruise is 150, and then it slows down, which is, I think, a better choice. If you don't do that, this thing is going to potentially go right through a noisemaker, and it'll be halfway across the map before it figures out, oh, that was not the submarine. So in this case, it makes sense that it's actually not as fast. There we go. and it slows down to 40 knots. It's detected the target right in front of it. It's actively pinging. The enemy submarine desperately tries to throw another noisemaker out, but it is just not going to be enough. This weapon will kill. Now, the submarine itself is enormous. It displaces 22,500 tons. It's a very big sub, but for its displacement, it's remarkably quick. 33.4 knots is what you can crank out with these engines. And I first want to get a kill on this enemy submarine, which is right in front of us here. After that, we're going to do some acceleration and deceleration tests, because I think that engine is massively over-tweaked and might need a bit of a nerf in this mod. The Shkval not only travels very fast, but it also hits very hard. To be fair, this is a very easy target to kill. It's just a small diesel-electric boat. It has absolutely no business being here. Yeah, you can try and decoy all you like, but it's not going to work. They can't run, they can't fight, they're not a big target. And there you go, instantly dead. That's a Daphne demolished. Okay, here we are. 10-17-01. I'm going to call it a head flank. I don't care about cavitation, we're just going to go head flank. That means that we're going to be arriving there in 10:29. Let's see how fast this thing can accelerate. Drag racing this thing. 2 knots in 2 seconds. Jeez, I hope the chef wasn't making soup, because it's going to be all over the place. In about 15 seconds, we're already doing 18 knots. That's way too strong. Way too strong. 30 seconds to flank speed? Yeah. It takes you about 30 seconds to get up to flank speed. Now, can we stop in the same level of time? All back emergency. No, we can slow down even faster. Yeah, so we're gonna slow down in about 15 seconds. Very, very impressive, but a bit too impressive if you ask me. So, I like the way that the missiles can be used. I like the way that this thing has a layered anti-submarine defense. And of course, you can still pretend that there are more submarines about. Although I don't know if these things actually work in sea power. The propulsion of this thing has to get changed, because this is a bit too strong. Overall though, this is going to be an interesting target to have to hunt. Because let's say you make a scenario where this thing is going to come after your task force. You have a submarine for your own, for example, for yourself, and your job is to go and hunt this thing before it kills you. Well, you better be quick. Because if it gets eyes on you, or ears rather, and it starts launching these things, I don't think there's much you can do. You've already lost the battle. So that is the Oscar II. I'm really looking forward to seeing this thing in a scenario. As long as I'm the one playing it, because if you're on the receiving end of these things, rather not. Thank you for watching, hope you've enjoyed. Link down below in the description to download and install this thing. And good hunting, whatever site you happen to be on.